In the early 1970s, downtown Denver was a sprawling, unforgiving concrete grid. Deep on Colfax Avenue stood a rundown, high-rise hotel. That is where 9-year-old Alan Hill and his brother Dave landed after their mother walked out on her partner. The block looked like a scene from a gritty crime drama. Rotting wooden fences, liquor stores on every corner, and desperate men sitting in doorways with absolutely nowhere else to be. Their mother worked constantly just to keep them afloat, which meant Alan and his brother were left to navigate this environment almost entirely unsupervised. To a child, a zip code like this feels permanent. It looks like a geographic life sentence with no visible exit. At this level, poverty behaves like a physical barrier. It is an impenetrable concrete wall designed to hold its residents perfectly captive. The men living in that hotel were mostly winos scraping by on Social Security or small pensions. They coped with the bleakness of the neighborhood by drinking continuously, but their physical decay masked an unexpected intelligence. They engaged young Alan in long, sophisticated conversations, treating him with a level of adult respect he rarely found elsewhere. Alan began to see that these men weren't just victims of bad luck. They had actively accepted the labels and convenient excuses society handed them to explain their position. It was a surrender to an illusion. The city block wasn't holding them captive. Their own certainty that they belonged there was the true constraint. Then there was Adrian Lyons. Adrian lived in the hotel and drank just like the others, but his spirit was fundamentally different. He was a former cop, a black man who had spent decades navigating the intense racial prejudices of the 1960s and 70s. He carried a permanent cigar-sized burn mark on his arm. He said white men had once held him down and put it there. Despite experiencing targeted violence and living at the absolute bottom of the social ladder, Adrian refused to let trauma or bitterness define his perspective. It forces the question, how does a man with every legitimate reason to be defeated become the most liberated mind in the building? The answer revealed itself in a routine. Adrian would take Alan and Dave on long walks down Colfax Avenue for lunch or an early dinner. They were heading for the Yoshinoya Beef Bowl. It was a spot where a few dollars bought a hot bowl of noodles topped with beef strips, a rare complete meal for the boys. During these walks, Alan observed Adrian's presence. Even when he was half drunk, Adrian remained observant and deeply engaged with his environment. Adrian never spoke ill of the desperate, broken people they passed. He treated every person in the neighborhood with profound human respect. He saw the grim surroundings clearly, yet he managed to remain entirely uncorrupted by them. He modeled a mindset that was independent of his zip code. Alan saw the opposite in his own mother. She was heavily burdened by a set of beliefs she held onto, as stubbornly as the hotel residents held on to their excuses. The hotel residents lived within an architecture of unexamined poverty beliefs, assumptions about their own worth and potential that had become as solid as the masonry of the building itself. If you pivot from those gritty streets to the sterile environments of modern business, you'll find the same psychological mechanism at work. In the corporate hierarchy, executives often lean on identical habits of denial, using labels and convenient external factors to explain why their situation is unchangeable. Middle-class and executive beliefs function as mental cages, creating a loop where the baseline reality of the job is simply never questioned. The men sitting in those Denver doorways and the executives sitting in these boardrooms are often following scripts they didn't write. The only real difference is the quality of their furniture. The hotel had concrete walls. The corporate world has invisible ones. Both hold you the same way. Living in that hotel, a 9-year-old Alan Hill made a silent, formative decision. He made a lifelong vow to never stop questioning his reality and the baseline assumptions handed to him by society. Escaping a neighborhood is a physical act, but real liberation requires a departure from the internal assumptions that define your limits. Learning to observe without condemning, the lesson taught by an unlikely wino on Colfax Avenue, is the key to identifying those invisible walls. Never be unwilling to let go of beliefs, especially if the beliefs have you.